So let me tell you about the most problematic design choice we made in this build and how many times it has already been a problem for us about 3 months into living in it. So originally we wanted to install our gray tank under the bus, under the kitchen area. It makes the most sense. It's close to the sink and the shower, and that's the water that goes into the gray tank. But we kept our bus's original air conditioner, and that air conditioner has a large condenser fan unit that sits in that exact spot. And we love having the air conditioner. We're glad we kept it, but the problem is that it kind of prevented us from putting a tank of a large enough size in that location. So we had to opt to put our tank somewhere else, and the location we chose is all the way in the back of the bus. And as far as installation and things like that went, definitely easy, very easy to access for emptying the tank. But in every other conceivable way, this was probably the worst choice we could have made. And unfortunately, that's how it goes sometimes with these builds, is that there's no one there to save you from your own ignorance and occasional stupidity. So we've had issues with bottoming out in the back of this vehicle. The wheelbase is long, but the vehicle is quite a bit longer. That tank is removing 6 to 8 inches of clearance that we would have otherwise had back there. So we've had issues bottoming out and smashing the tank and the mounts and the pieces associated with that on the ground. So that's been a constant worry on our mind. When we did bottom out and damage those mounting pieces under the gray tank, we also snapped the PVC pipe that runs between the gray tank and the sink and shower drain. The pipe actually cracked right behind our back 2 tires. It was actually crushed by our suspension due to how hard we hit and the location of the pipe, which is another reason that it's not great for that tank to be back there, is we do have this pipe that runs very close to both our leaf springs and to our tire, so it's really not in a great spot. I was able to fix it by cutting out the PVC that was broken and installing new stuff, and we were hopeful that by tying it in a slightly different position and lifting it a little bit more that we wouldn't have an issue with that again, so long as we were careful not to bottom out. Well, today has proven us wrong. We were probably going 75 down 17 headed to Phoenix to run a couple errands, and Greg looks into his side view mirror and starts swearing. And what he tells me he's seeing is a piece of our gray tank plumbing. We have a flexible hose in one part of the plumbing, and he's seeing that piece bent out around the side of the gray tank and the PVC that's left dragging on the highway. So naturally we pull over and we check everything out, and the pipe has split again. This time I'm not so sure that it was a suspension issue coming up and hitting, so much as I think a couple of our supports that were holding the pipe in place away from the suspension may have failed, and it may have allowed it to kind of slide into a more compromising position and then break. Right now, because we're out here and we're not really in a place where we can do a lot of intensive repairs, what I'm hoping to do is just kind of do the same fix I did before. Get a little bit better of a mechanism to hold the pipe up, cut out the broken PVC, and just add in another couple of couplers and another length of PVC and make sure it's tied up securely and out of the way so that we maybe don't have this issue again. We are headed back to New York for part of this summer, and we'd be way more equipped when we're there to kind of do a more long-term solution and possibly move that tank altogether. But I'm thinking in the short term, we're only looking at a few more weeks of this, so I would like to think that this would be a good enough solution to at least get us back to our home base and allow us to maybe come up with something a little more permanent. So we just took a look at the pipe and everything, and I think the next thing we're going to do is head over to the hardware store, and I'm going to pick up all the things that I think I need in order to do this job quickly. I don't know that I'll get it done tonight. We may be decommissioned as far as a gray system goes for this evening, but I think tomorrow, God willing, right, everything goes well and I'll be able to have us back in action, at least in the short term.
Mexican Coke.
Love it.
Yet another Greg walking up to the bus with food in hand. I feel like that's becoming a trend on this channel.
So, update. It is not getting fixed tonight. There is absolutely no way. By the time we actually figured out the parts that we would need and where we would need to go, it was like getting dark where we were. So we decided to call it a night. We're at a truck stop now, just parked for the evening. First thing tomorrow, we're gonna head up towards Flagstaff. We're gonna pick up some groceries, and then we're gonna head to the hardware store and I'm gonna fix it then. So in the meantime, we stop for burritos as we always do when we're near Phoenix, and I think we're gonna enjoy those. And then we're gonna call it a night early, and that way we can get up early and fix this problem just about as soon as possible, because it's pretty annoying not to be able to use your sink when you're in your house.
What do you think you're doing? Think you're gonna get some of these delicious tacos? Is that what you think? Even after your food still sits here uneaten? No tacos until you finish your actual dog food. Good morning. After an amazing night's sleep at a truck stop, we are up and hopefully off to get this whole gray system fiasco figured out. In theory, it's just PVC, so it shouldn't take long to fix once we get all the parts, but you know how that goes. We're gonna head to the hardware store and hopefully get this whole thing fleshed out. In circles, but it's a dizzying day. I would give a lot to get away. It's getting real dark in.
So I am back from the hardware store with a whole bunch of stuff, more stuff than I really wanted to buy, but I think we're ready to make an attempt at this repair. Let me walk you through what I'm planning on doing. The first thing I'm gonna do is take the world's largest pipe cutter, because last time I did this repair, I did it with a hacksaw and it took forever. I'm gonna take this pipe cutter, cut the broken ends off, and measure the distance between the two pieces that are separated and see how big of a piece that we're gonna need to fit that space. We have, from our previous job, piece of PVC left over, but on the off chance that I break something, I have a piece of ABS to replace that as well. So once we have the new pipe cut to length, I'm going to use the couplers that they had in order to connect everything back together. I have some PVC glue that I'm going to use to obviously glue the pipes together. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this out of the package and go out there and see if I can't cut these pipes to a flat, more workable surface. So you can see here, this is where it was dragging on the ground, right? That little flat spot. So we have to cut it back to at least that point. So it's supposed to cut cleanly. I call this a one-handed tool, but I'm small. So it's a two-handed tool. There we go. Oh, look at that. Oh my God, so much better than a hacksaw. Oh, okay. So we didn't cut quite far enough. You can still see this. And we're not quite straight, but that's okay. Now I know that it works. Pretty impressed. We worked with much less capable tools when we built this system in the first place, so. Now that, for what we're doing, looks pretty good. See, right there, you can see where it was, dragging as we were going 75 down the highway there. So pretty interesting that it survived at all. Now we have to cut back this other piece, which I expect to be harder because it's kind of tucked up way too close to the suspension frame. You can see how close we are right here to the copper propane line. So very careful, very, very careful job here. All right, so there's our little nicely clean cut section. You can see that angle on that first cut a little bit more aggressively from this position. But for what we're doing, I think it's gonna be okay. Again, my temporary fix is what we're doing today. There's gonna have to be a more permanent solution down the line. We're just looking to get back to home base with this one. So I'm gonna need to measure this distance and get some couplers down here and do some dry fitting and see what we can do. So I took the measurement. It appears to be about 3 1/4 inches. So we have enough pipe here to maybe mess this up once or twice. So that's what we're gonna start with. This pen does not wanna write on the PVC, but I can see that. All right. Got our piece. Let's go see if it fits. So it fits and it looks great. And you can see that is gonna be just enough pipe to work on this end. But the problem, even though I have some flexibility in this piece, once I get some glue on here, this is gonna be impossible to pull this up and then slide it in without getting my glue everywhere. So I'm gonna cut this middle piece back just a little bit shorter to give myself a little bit more room, and then we're gonna try this again. Love to see it.
There it is, perfect fit.
I really had to force those together there, but I think this is gonna work. This runs all the way up and back to here. and then continues past the tire. So we're gonna fix that and get that a little closer to the frame. I'm gonna mess with it for a second, I think, and see if I can get into a position I like before we put some glue on. Because once the glue goes on, it's a little bit hard to take off. I think we're gonna go glue up this middle section first and then bring the glue outside and glue up the pieces that are out here. So we can't get them apart. We did too good of a job dry fitting.
Try the wiggle method here.
The internet said wiggling it rather than twisting it would do it. Look at that.
I'm the
Boom.
strongest man alive.
Don't put it back together. So, we used to have PVC primer, and then it dried out in the back of our bus. We were breathing those fumes for a while, and so we got rid of that. And then I went in the store to buy some when I bought everything else, and I left it sitting on the checkout counter and did not pay for it or pick it up. But I Googled this, and it seems like on its own, without the primer, the cement should do just fine. I really don't want to run back in there just for more primer that I know we're going to end up throwing away. And again, this is a temporary solution. I'm going to have to do something better than this in the long term. So for today, we're just using the cement. Sorry, Dad.
He's gonna be so pissed. He's screaming at his phone right now.
I'm sure.
Where's the primer? You have to use the primer!
We're going to do one at a time. Good. Coat this. Good. Coat. Press these together.
Hold for 30 seconds.
Yep, that's this part. We're just making sure the glue doesn't push the pipes apart. Sometimes it will do that. That's tighter than before. Hopefully that's not a problem. I don't need that much space here. It's literally an inch short of being able to just stick another coupler right on the two broken pieces that I cut. It just broke like that much more than what would have worked for that setup. So I need about the shortest piece of coupler and PVC and then a coupler setup that I can possibly create.
It's short, all right. Can't even tell there's a piece of PVC in there.
I did this before. I put it on the stable end first, and then I put the bendable end on. So I think I'm going to attempt to do the same. Doesn't seem to be causing any push out. I think that's still going to work on this side. So I'm going to work quickly here and glue the other side up and hold the whole thing in place while I have some flexibility. There it goes. That looks really good. Okay. I'm just gonna hang out here for a minute until this is solidified, and then we're gonna be good to go put those ties in, and this job is gonna be temporarily done. Honestly, this was easier than the first time with that cutting tool. I'm now prepared to do this again when it inevitably breaks a second, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth time. So, last piece of this puzzle. I don't love this pipe securing system that we have. It's a little cheesy and probably not the most stable, but again, how many times have I said this now? This is a temporary solution. It makes the most sense for us to do something completely different in this area over the summer, if not sooner. I just need it further out of the way of some of our suspension components and away from that space in between the frame and the suspension where that initial failure, I think, happened. Thinking that the plastic zip ties may have had something to do with the failure this time, these are insulated cable clamps. I'm gonna drill these directly into the frame of the bus with these self-tapping screws that I procured from the hardware store, and then I'm gonna loop one of these stainless steel cable ties underneath the pipe and tighten it up so that it pulls it up off of that suspension and up tight to the frame and over to the left a little bit. So this is just a beefed up version of what we already had under there. Again, hoping it's enough for the interim, but I guess we'll see what happens. You can see here, that's the one that broke. So we're trying to replace it with something not so stupidly designed. Problem is this angle, right? Doing this one hand, it seems insane. Oh my God, it's barely going. All right, so let me show you what I did and why I hate it. So you can see here, there's our new little wire clamp, and here's a whole mess of zip ties. I really do not care for what we have going on here. So the metal ones don't ratchet quite as nicely as the plastic ones do, so I really couldn't get them tight, and I really wanted them to, really be tight and pull this up towards the frame. So I ended up adding, you can see it kind of right there, a little black one, the plastic one there. And that kind of acted like this extra piece to kind of pull everything tighter so I could get the metal ones a little bit tighter. And then of course I did that on both ends, so I have that down there as well. But I mean, like, this placement is not good. It needs to be further away from the suspension. It needs to be tighter to the frame. It needs to be really not in this location at all. and I would not be surprised if we have to do this repair again in the next few weeks. But unfortunately, without completely changing course here and spending another several hours out here messing around with things, there's very little that I can do. So in the interest of not going insane lying on the ground in this parking lot, I'm going to leave it for now. So technically, that job is finished. I do not like it. I do not like how it's repaired. I do not like where that pipe is. The longer I look at it, the angrier I am with my past self for putting it there in the first place. But it's fixed right now. There's no leaks as far as we know, and it is up and it is holding, and I would like to think that we can at least get a little bit of time out of this for the time being. So we have to leave it for now. That's just the way it goes sometimes. It's not a great solution, but it is a solution. And it's time for us to leave here. We were planning on being up much further north than this already today. We gotta get moving. It's already the afternoon and we need to get camped before it gets dark. That's where we're gonna leave you for this one. Hopefully next time I will see you under slightly less stressful circumstances. It goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground.